Hey, welcome back to the podcast. We're gonna finish off our depth chart today, talking about the most important position, the one I think we would want, I don't know, maybe shooting guard is up there too, but the one that we want to talk about the most today because it's the last one. We're gonna be talking about the point guard position. We got our boy Scoot. Anthony Simons will probably plug into that spot a little bit. So some of that Anthony conversation can continue from last week. And then later we'll talk a little bit about some comments that Anthony Edwards made that you guys had some opinions on. And so be sure to stay tuned for that. I guess let's start off with the depth chart though. Let's see. I haven't even brought up. I feel like looking at ESPN's depth chart for the Blazers has been a nightmare every time I've looked at it.
It's just not what you want to see, right? Every time you
Hey,
look.
Graham. I forgot about him, a new addition to the Blazers third string. Delano Banton and Shaden Sharp. Actually, not really as much of a logjam at that point guard position as I was thinking. Brogdon's out of the way. It really is Scoots kind of taking the reins there. What do you guys see in that position? What do you want to see from Scoot, Colton?
Yeah, and just starting off, this is going to be, if you're tuning in for like the Anthony's the point guard of the future video from Colton, anyways, this is not going to be the video for you. Here's the thing. If Anthony is going to be a member of the Portland Trailblazers future, it should be, in my opinion, at point guard next to Shaden Sharp for positional fit. Shaden projects to be a better defender, body size and everything. His natural like spot would be point guard. I don't think it's gonna work with him as a point guard, natural point guard, anyways. So long term, I would love to see our boy Scoot Henderson starting this year at point guard, and I think he will. And I think Anthony will start at shooting guard starting off the year. But Scoot Henderson, what do I want to see from him this year? The dog. The dogs are barking, which I think he's working on his game. I've seen earlier this offseason. I can't remember actually which one of you said this. Sorry. It's been a long summer. One of you wanted to see these workout videos. Okay. Who was it?
I think
Which one?
I think that was
Was it
Riley.
Riley? I've seen about three or four separate workout videos of Scoot in the lab working on his game. He's been working on it. I know he has. I knew he would, but he's working on the game. And I never had a doubt with him. Like just looking at his body, like he's working hard just on his on himself, right? He's not a guy that takes summers off, it doesn't seem like. So that's good. Um, so I want to see, some flashes of brilliance from him. I want to see some stretches where he's the best player on the
Six
floor.
threes in a game like we saw at the end of last year when we went, the only game that
Yeah.
we went to.
I want to see some distribution, continue to grow as a distributor. Some flashes with the left hand. That's like my main thing with him. Finish with your left hand, practice on the finishing because he's explosive in like his crossover dribble moves and getting to the rim. It kind of reminds me of Dame. Dame's rookie year, he was atrocious at finishing at the rim. Scoot kind of had those issues as well. People forget that. Dame was not always this elite finisher at the rim. I think that if Scoot can work on his finishing at the rim, we're going to see a completely different player. And people are going to say, wow, he improved a lot. Well, if he just hits those bunny layups with the left, we're going to say, geez, his efficiency jumped up just off that. So I want to see that from him this year, and we're gonna love what we see just from that. The passing, bringing the team together, kind of taking them under his wing because I think he's that vocal guy that's kind of take over the mantle if you can, right? If that's your game. And that's kind of what I want to see. I don't expect him to be the guy that's going 30 and 15 every night and leading the team to wins every night. That's just not realistic right now. That's not how it's going to work. Okay. So we can't say he has to lead the team to wins every night or else he's a bust. We got to see flashes of brilliance where he's the best player on the floor at times. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, I want to see him figure out what kind of NBA player he's going to be this season. I don't feel like he's had enough time, enough reps, enough minutes, enough confidence, from his team for him to really figure out where he fits. Obviously, bringing him in, we were hoping he was going to be, the point guard of the future, kind of the leader of the team, and I think he still could be. Based on what we saw last year, there were some doubts for me that he is that guy. And I'm thinking I was feeling like we were probably going to end up needing somebody else to come in and be kind of a major scorer, an offensive leader. You just can't be the leader on the team if you don't have a serious scoring weapon. I mean, there really isn't anybody that I can think of who is the guy on a team who can't score at least sometimes. So he has to figure that out to some degree. He's probably not going to ever be an elite deep shooter, and that's fine. Like, that's not what we need from him necessarily. We just need him to figure out what it is that he's going to do. Whether that is finishing at the rim, being a total hound on defense, those things would all be fine. But he needs minutes to figure that out. He needs time. Really glad to see that he's putting in the work this season. I totally agree. He doesn't seem like the lazy type whatsoever. The other thing I really want to see from him is I want him to be the correct amount determined to dominate. I've talked a little bit about that his little catchphrase is somewhat of a pet peeve for me because we don't need anybody overly determined to dominate. We need people who are just the right amount determined to dominate. And especially this season, we don't the correct amount to dominate is zero. No domination. That we don't need to be any determined to dominate this season. We need to lose a lot of games, which I think will just happen naturally. But I hope that we can at least see stretches with him in the lead where he looks like, yeah, not only is he the best player on the floor, but he's leading the best unit on the floor. We need to figure out whether he's a distributor, whether he's a set guys up, whether he's a take it hard to the rim, collapse the defense. What is it? What's his thing? I haven't seen it yet. Luckily this season's going to be on TV that we can watch, so that'll help.
I think you guys kind of said it all. But I would say the two highlights that I would kind of say are the most important is health. He can just be out on the floor, playing the majority of the games. Be if he would have done that last year, I think he would have started for most of the year as well. I don't really think it was an issue of talent so much as he just couldn't get any real momentum, any real you know, in the flow there. And the second one, Colton, you said it, being a team leader. If he can start to build a culture in that locker room and show that he's a culture guy and a leader, I think the rest of that stuff will work itself out. Like you said already, he's in the gym working. He's got all the athletic tools and skills. He's gonna be an explosive finisher if he stays healthy and plays a lot of minutes. He's gonna be finding his guys. He's gonna be diming. I think all that stuff will that's gonna take care of itself. He's just gonna go out there and play ball, and he's a good basketball player. It's about health and culture for me. And if he can set those two things up this season and really set a foundation for both of those things, Blazers might still have a franchise guy in him, especially if he can start to build chemistry with the young guys that they really want to build around, namely Shaden Sharp, Benny Advia, and Donovan Clingan. If those, four guys can start to build some chemistry, build some team culture, and stay healthy, that's really all I want to see this year. And wins and losses don't matter this year. Blazers fans are little delusional thinking we're gonna be competing. Blazers are gonna be competing this year. That's not gonna happen. It's another tank season, probably another chance for a pick. But I just hope that we see some development out of those young guys and really see a little bit of a glimpse into the future of what that core is gonna look like, rather than the only real success being like Brogdon and Jeremy Grant and DeAndre Ayton, which those guys aren't part of the future. It's just the way it is. And Anthony Simons add Simons to that list.
Yeah, and I would slightly disagree. Like, I think, especially like with what Riley was saying specifically, like, because I think down the stretch of the year, we did see some of what like you want to see in a franchise player. Like the last 15 games specifically, he was really putting a good stretch of games together and consistently. Specifically passing the ball and getting others involved. There was a stat which I know like this isn't like the top stat out there, but he was second in all of the league in potential assists
You're
behind
John Hollingering it down there.
Jokic, the entire league, the last 15 games. Okay. I mean, that's pretty good company. Potential assist means if he had better teammates, he is diming these guys up and they have butter hands and can't score, or he's saying, here, score the ball, and they can't. And that's
It's
you
Chris
have a
Murray and
tanking league.
Delano Banton going a combined 0 for 26 from three.
Exactly. So he's driving in, kicking it out. Exactly. You have a 2 for 42 night from three, but Scoot is creating good looks, right? So I think he is showing that, or he did it at the end of the year, especially. And so let's just see more of that. Let's see more. He's creating good looks for others. He's that pass first point guard that we want. Let's see some competition on the defensive end from him. He can score. Like he had some flashes of scoring already. I mean, he didn't. It's not like he was like a single digit scorer that couldn't put the ball in the basket ever. He had some games where he was hitting that step back mid range shot. Like you can see he has the skill to do it. It's not like he's a dud that can't score. So I think
This
it's
is kind of
fair.
a this is a little bit of a basketball theory question. I don't know how far I want to follow this thread down, but I was just thinking about it when you mentioned the 0 for 42, the 2 for 42 night. When it comes to a young point guard like that, how important or what do you think's the right play? You continue to find the open guy even if they're not hitting shots, or do you pass up the open guy and try to do something else? I mean, hopefully you're put in a position where the open guy is a capable 3-point shooter. But if you're out there with Delano Banton and Chris Murray, which he will be, find himself in those moments this year as well. Like, do you want to see him not pass to those guys that are wide open and maybe try to make something else happen? Or do you just continue to trust your teammates? It's a interesting sort of basketball theory question. I don't really know if any of us have the answer to, but it
Well,
was just popped into my head.
I have an answer that he should continue to pass to Delano Banton so that we lose plenty of games so that we can go
But
try to
that's
get
not.
Cooper Flag.
But the players are going to try and win. Like you
That's
want
what
the
I'm
players
saying
to try
though.
and
So
win.
keep playing like that. Keep passing to guys who can't score. Everyone wins. And then eventually, if he gets some guys in those positions who can put the ball in the hoop and he keeps making the pass to them, then eventually those start to go in. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not being totally flippant. I'm kind of serious that if he keeps making the right basketball play, regardless of who's on the other end, that's good for us because it means we lose this year and win in the future when we have a better team around him. So yeah, I
I
think
think
he needs to keep
so.
playing the way he has been playing. And hopefully, hopefully he's going to develop some chemistry with some guys who can score better. Like I think that some of the stuff between him and Klingon can be really exciting this year.
Yeah, I think I agree with that, that you continue to try to make that right basketball play because in the future, hopefully once you get some real talent around him, you still want him making that right play and hit it, you don't want him second guessing it and stuff. Um, but that being said, maybe it's a skill to develop later in his career once he does have a hopefully winning team around him to, look for the hot hand or look for the most efficient option rather than just the open guy. I don't know.
The only issue is then you have people like us when the guy's all season been making the right play instead of looking for his own shot, looking at the stat sheet saying this guy sucks. He averaged 12 points per game because he's been just force feeding his teammates who've been bricking, so he doesn't have that many assists either. Why isn't he being aggressive? You know what I mean? Like there's just no winning because the team isn't winning. So then you're like, he can't lead the team because so it's like you gotta find a time to at least put some numbers up somewhere, or else people are gonna like lose faith in you. So it's not gonna be. That's why I'm saying like we gotta see flashes of like the brilliance from him, and then you're like, Scoot had an awesome game, and the team lost, but it's not his fault. Like you can see the promise is there. That way you can say, look, in the future, when the whole roster is set around him, we've seen this out of him. Kind of like Shaden, when you're like, we've seen this out of Shaden, we just need to see it consistently, right? That's what we want to see from Scoot. That's kind of what I'm thinking, but
You
I
start to
mean,
realize why exactly the point guard is the hardest position to learn in the NBA when you start to factor in these kinds of, they're making all the decisions, where the ball goes, if they are hitting the guy who's 1 for 7 in the wide open corner or pulling a tougher shot that they're capable of making, but if they miss, people are going to be calling it a bad shot, and they're looking to get Ayton involved, but he, isn't getting. He's taking 8 shots a game or whatever, like he did for the first couple months of the season. There's a lot of factors you got to consider when you're the point guard running the show. And looking at this depth chart, going down a little ways, there is really no true backup. We kind of went, Blazers kind of went from having too many point guards to I don't really see another true point guard. I mean, Devonte Graham is okay. He's 6'1". I guess he's a true point guard and sort of a defensive minded guy. If I'm
I mean,
right, I actually
Anthony's
don't
going
really
to
know.
be the backup. Like, Anthony's going to be out there with Shaden too, because they're probably going to try and give it another try and see how that works. So, I mean, we've seen that show before. It's usually a lot of dribbling, and hopefully, he has improved his playmaking somewhat, but I would love to see like a blossoming of the playmaking from him. That would be
The real question is on the other side of the ball, though. Like, if he's just going to be out there hemorrhaging points, just allowing blow-bys from, the best ball handlers, the best playmakers in the world, I don't think you can have him out there that longer. That's where I really think Scoot has the higher, the very high ceiling is his potential as a ball stopper, just because he's so physical and so quick.
Yeah, it's my opinion that I mean Anthony Simons cannot be a point guard in this league. That is not what he's built for. No one should put the guy in that position. It's not fair to him. It's like trying to make Jeremy Grant play power forward. Who would do that in their right mind? It's
There's
just
no such
not
thing as a power forward, really.
it's not fair to them. It's not using their talents to the best. Anthony Simons is a shooting guard. He could be a good shooting guard on a team that has a good experienced point guard that can get him the ball in the right place. But
He can play defense.
trying to make him bring the ball up the floor. I mean, he barely, there's so many plays he barely gets it across the half court line by the time the timer runs out.
that is true.
He's feeling pressure, he's losing the ball, he's making bad passes just to get it out of his hands because he doesn't feel like he can control the ball when he's the point guard. He's that kind of point guard, and that is just not what you want in the NBA. And it's not his fault. He's a shooting guard. And so a lot of times when he is bringing the ball up the floor, he's trying to make those terrible step back shots just because he wants the ball to be out of his hands so they'll stop hounding him trying to get it. He's long, he's lanky, he's fairly tall for a point guard. It's too easy to steal the ball from him and he makes mistakes. It's not on him necessarily. So yeah, it's definitely not a good idea to run him at the point too much. I don't think he should be our backup point guard. I think that's a mistake. So yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. We're a little shy at the point guard position at this point. I think we kind of have a lot of shooting guards now. So hopefully that means Scoot's going to get a lot of opportunity to run with both of those guys at shooting guard. I know they're going to they're going to have to try to run Anthony at point guard. We're going to see it happen, but it's going to be ugly, just like it always has been.
You kind of mentioned the ball sticking issue, and I think the league right now is all about pushing the ball up the court as fast as you can. Looking at I think that's one of the reasons that Joker is so effective is he rebounds it and he's hitting guys within 2 seconds across the court or just pushing it up and running up quick. I think Scoot has a lot more of that in his game, and Anthony has not figured that part of his game out yet. Like you said, struggles to get it across half court a lot of the time, and when he does, he doesn't really know what play to make, and it just sort of winds up like his best option, rather than turning the ball over by making a pass, is to huck up a three, which he can make. He's a good shooter, but that is not the kind of offense I don't think you want your primary ball handler to be making.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and the acquisition of Devonte Graham was actually interesting timing, in my opinion. You feel like a player like that. I didn't think he was maybe close to out of the league or anything like that. I thought he maybe could have found a different job that wasn't like a, it's almost like a camp invite rather than like a contract spot, like a roster spot. So it's almost like weird timing. Like, is an Anthony trade gonna actually maybe happen before training camp? So it could still happen. And Devonte is good, like a vet guard. If Anthony does get traded, he's a good like bridge where if there's a tank portion of the season or if Scoot does get a little banged up, Devontae can just fill in and he's the tank wagon. He's there, right? So he's a good depth piece. He's been around the league. He can mentor the young guys, right? He's not that old himself, but he's just been around, and that's a good thing. Um, I think that I don't know if he's like a full defense guy either, really, to answer your earlier question. He's kind of undersized. He's like 6'1", right?
Yeah, I just saw that. 6'1" is pretty
Yeah,
small.
but I mean, long story short, it was an interesting timing adding him to the camp side of things. So I'm excited for training camp to start to see kind of if he's gonna stick, which I'm assuming he's gonna, to see what happens with Anthony and see if there's like kind
How
of a
did they
last.
acquire Devontae Graham? Was it just a signing or did they trade?
It's a signing, yeah, camp. That's why I said it's a camp deal. It's not even an official contract yet. So I'm wondering if there's still some moving and some shaking that could come down the pipeline.
I think that does indicate though the lack of depth, like we said, the moving of Malcolm Brogdon, and kind of like I said to begin this video that or at least this segment of the video, it's kind of Scoots keys to the kingdom. Obviously Simons is still there and he'll be playing a lot of point guard ball handler role, but they're kind of saying, Scoot, it's your turn to step up. There's nobody else behind you. You're gonna have to play a lot of minutes. You're gonna have to be healthy this year. Hopefully that's what we see. I think that's what every Blazers fan is aching to see.
Yep. And
You guys
and
want to? Oh, go ahead.
the last guy we need to mention because I know it's your favorite, Delano Banton.
Is he even involved in the point guard discussion? I feel like
Oh yeah,
he's a point. He's like 6'8", isn't he?
Sean Livingston.
Do not see point guard vibes from him. I see shot chucker vibes. He feels like way more of an off guard to me, a guy who
I
just
mean,
takes shots.
let's hear your thoughts on the Delano Banton offensive range show.
I think I said all I needed to say. He gets up shots. That's about all I know about Delano Bent is the dude will shoot the ball a lot and have, he puts up 20, 25 shots a game when they're tanking and sometimes he hits 11 or 12 of them, sometimes he hits two or three of them. So I think that's Delano Bent in a nutshell.
It's what we need this year. We need him to go 2 for 26 every night. Let's go, Delano. Yeah, I mean, I kind of wonder almost if at this point, when we do trade Anthony and or Grant, I mean, do we need to try to find a legitimate backup point guard at some point too? Like that might need to be part of one of these trades to try to get a pick and a backup point guard, not someone who's going to be great or transform the team, but just someone who can, serviceably bring the ball up the floor when Scoot needs a breather. I mean, that might really be an issue if we lose Anthony.
Give us TJ McConnell.
That's like the top backup point guard in the league. That's probably a coveted asset. I don't know.
I feel like maybe like 2 years ago, that would have been a much more tangible option, much
Yeah,
more
you're
attainable.
probably right. You're
All
probably right.
right. I think we completed the depth chart now. It's gonna be interesting to see how this season shakes out. I think we all probably kind of know. I have a good idea what it's gonna look like, and it's probably not gonna be too dissimilar from last year. But there's a few high spots. I'm excited about Klingen. I'm excited about Denny, and I hope to see Scoot and Shaden play more games. And I hope Anthony does well too. I don't want any of them to do bad necessarily. I just don't have highest hopes. What else do you guys want to talk about, Riley? I feel like you had particular quote from a particular individual. This particular individual had a
Particular
particular quote.
individual. Yeah. We need to talk about this, guys, real quick. We come from kind of an interesting generation in that we're a little bit in between. We're not really the young guys anymore, but we're not exactly the old heads either. We've kind of seen it all. And so we can kind of listen to this old head, young guy debate
Bridge the gap.
and
Bridge the gap.
try to figure some things out or at least laugh at all of them. So Ant Edwards, who we everyone on this podcast I think has acknowledged that he's an incredible athlete, incredible basketball player, huge potential. No one on here has ever claimed that he's a Rhodes Scholar either. He definitely sometimes puts his foot in his mouth a little bit when he's trying to talk trash, trying to be a big man on campus. So, a couple of days ago, he brought up the
That
idea.
Georgia education.
Oof. He brought up this idea when someone asked him about this whole debate about, today's NBA versus the old NBA. And he had the foresight to say, I didn't watch it back in the day, so I can't speak on it. What a great answer. That's it. That should
End
be
it.
the end of it. Just call
End
it
it.
right there. But guess what? He went ahead and spoke on it anyway. He was right that he can't speak on it, but then he did. And he said, they say it was tougher back then than it is now, but I don't think anybody had skill back then. Michael Jordan was the only one that really had skill. You know what I mean? So that's why when they saw Kobe, they were like, oh my God. But now everybody has skill. So nobody had skill. Then he remembered, oh, well, there was Michael Jordan, the best basketball player of all time. I guess I should acknowledge that he had skill. But that was the only person he acknowledged. Is there anybody that you can think of in particular who might have had a problem with that statement? Any skilled, maybe, this is a point guard depth chart video. Any famous point guards that might have a problem with the no skill comment? Magic himself. Yeah, and I thought he had a great response. He came back with just, I never respond to a guy that's never won a championship.
How many rings you got? How many
The
rings you got,
classic
Ant?
Shaq response of just simplifying the argument to rings.
Klay Thompson.
Yeah, but
Rings,
I mean,
Ernie.
this guy just heard some dumbass kid say that nobody had skill back in the day when he's Magic frickin' Johnson. So he had to say something. He had to clap back. And one of the best ways to clap back against these guys that their competitiveness and their competitive experience is sometimes in question because of the no college thing or the very little college. We've talked about that a lot. That's honestly my biggest gripe with the young generation of basketball players is the way that they come into the league. A lot of times they have not ever won anything. Like they played in freaking high school and then they're like going into the G League and like losing game after game and never like actually building chemistry with a team. I mean, college basketball is a thing. Like you build a team over a couple of years with guys you trust, you gain camaraderie, you lose, and then if you build up to the point that you win a national championship, you're a winner. I'm glad we drafted someone like that.
I
But
mean,
does anyone have any thoughts on this old versus young debate? This does anyone think Ant's right that there's no skilled players?
I think it's hilarious that, well, one, how can you be more wrong for one, right? But and you summed it up fine. I'm not even going to touch on it because of how stupid it is. But it's hilarious because Kevin Garnett then responded to that and he said, "All right, young fella," or whatever the hell he said. I don't know if any of you guys in the league now could have played in the league 20 years ago when I played. So then Kevin Garnett pulled a back in my day on the young guys, which that's just as stupid. Like,
Yeah.
what I don't understand the era crap where they say that they can't fit in. Like the people that say the old players that say, I don't know if LeBron could have played in my era. What are you talking about? What are you talking
He would have
about?
been
That
just
is
fine.
just as bad. It goes both ways, right? And there might be some truth to some players maybe not fitting into some eras, because of how the games were played. And it depends on what kind of rule sets we're playing with, right? Like some of the big lumbering centers might get played off the court with some of the rules in today's game, and some of those guys might not have been skilled. They were just in there to foul people, but there was some really skilled players in that era, right? Obviously. And then
And there's
just on
some
the flip
monsters
side,
today. Yeah.
yeah, on the flip side, some of these small guys aren't going to check Hakeem Olajuwon. They're not going to be able to stay on their feet and guard a guy in the post that's going to fake them out of their shoes. It's obvious, right? It goes both ways, but it also goes both ways the other way. Like, what are you talking about? Like that nobody from now could play in the league 20 years ago. That's just as stupid of a comment. So
Yeah, like you said, it's just this whole debate is so it doesn't make any sense because the game it's a completely different game. The rules are completely different. The way it's called is completely different. I gotta look somewhat at the question here, and it says, "How do you think your generation of basketball is different from older generations?" The more interesting thing to me almost is the money side of it, how much money they're making and how much like how much the preparation is different and sort of the lifestyle of the game. There's so much more money in like training and rehab and obviously the money and the business side of it. They have all these other sort of endeavors that they're in. And that's like, a smarter answer to take. Like our generation of basketball, our generation of players is different in that, there's all these extra business opportunities. There's maybe more obligations in some ways of doing more media and that sort of thing. But there's also so much more support. They have like business managers that help these guys say the exact right thing at the exact right time. They have all the trainers and the doctors helping them at all the right times and
they
to
don't
do
always
all the right
listen.
things. What?
They don't always listen to the PR because Anthony Edwards cannot stop saying the wrong freaking thing every second. Just look up his PR gaff list and it's longer than
The
an
chicken with
encyclopedia.
Carl Anthony Towns. That was the one. I thought that was going to be the end of them, but they were able to handle that all right. But yeah, they just have so much more support than they did back in the 80s and 90s when these guys were like drinking at halftime and, smoking cigarettes and going out to the clubs after the games and stuff. There's just a totally different culture in the league, the
That takes
resources.
skill, by the way, to smoke like a 6 pack of cigs out there and then go
It
out
takes a
there
certain
and
amount of athleticism, that's for sure. Like you
gee,
you gotta you gotta have some resilience built into you. And so
really?
like I can sort of see the old timers' point of view that like these young kids are soft, that they have all these advantages and it's not as physical and the lifestyle probably isn't quite as hard in some respects. But I see the young guys' point of view that they couldn't keep up with our pace, because they don't have the access to these resources that we did to keep that athleticism in tip-top shape. So that's the more interesting side of it rather than like who would win in today's NBA. That just doesn't make any sense because it's so different. Like, and obviously, no one has all of our. Last time I checked, my time machine is broken, so it doesn't matter at the end of the day anyway. Who would do well in the '80s and how the '80s guys would do
We
well
could do
today?
another time machine video.
We should. Oh yeah, shit. Maybe I do. Maybe I do have a time machine back here somewhere. It broke, but maybe I can fix it.
I think, just kind of to put a bow on it, like the one thing that we should all agree on is that, like, come on, you guys just need to show each other some more respect. Like that should roll both ways, honestly. Like the younger guys should look at the older guys as having paved the way because they wouldn't be making the money they're making now if not for the work that those guys put in back then. And a lot of those guys are still now making more money because the young guys have taken the game in such a great direction, through either sponsorship or announcing or whatever. So
Analysis, yeah, all the analysts.
it's all one big family. No one needs to be against each other here. Just show some respect. And let me just say from my perspective, my experience, being a younger guy and showing even just a little modicum of respect to the elders, it's a good way to go. It'll get you a long way.
the other way down too, like being an elder statesman and taking a young guy under your wing and giving him a little bit of advice. It's funny, we are at that age where it kind of goes both ways. Like a guy 20 years older, you can talk to them and it goes a long way. Or you can talk to like a 15 or 20-year-old and you can see like you can actually make a difference in both of those people's lives. Really, no matter what age, you can make a difference in someone's life just by being a nice person, showing some respect. Are we
See you
are
guys
we out of
later.
time? We must be
Yep,
out of time.
we're out of
Colton's got
time.
his hand on his head. All right, thanks guys. Thanks for watching.